I think that close reading makes me feel like a better reader because when I understand what the author is trying to portray, I feel like I know and I'm smart because I get the whole story.
Last week we spent a lot of time reading Every Little Hurricane. Remember that piece of text? Yeah, it was an interesting piece of text. And we talked about things like metaphors. And we looked at some big ideas in the text, and we looked at details that supported those ideas, and we really created a very powerful literary analysis. And you all, in our exam last Thursday, you all produced a pretty impressive literary analysis. So we're going to make a connection back to Every Little Hurricane that we read last week, and we're going to go into some clearer informational text. Our target today, what we want to learn, is to cite evidence. So when we're talking to each other, we need to have textual evidence that supports that analysis. And when you're talking, I really want you to use some argumentation skills. I'm really looking for you to say, I disagree with you because. Here's my claim. I have some evidence. So I really want to practice that argumentation language as we look at a piece of text written by Chief Joseph. So I'll hand out the piece of text now. And when I do, if you could please take just a quick read through the text, pay attention to its structure. This time I'd like you to take a second read through this time annotating. So remember, we're circling words and phrases that are confusing, we're underlining big ideas, and we're writing notes in the margins.
It's not one time read, it's multiple times, like 3 times I think. So the first time is just to get overview, the grasp of it. And then the second time, it's looking depth into what's going on, what don't you understand, what you do understand.
I'm seeing lots of underlining, circling, highlighting. I'm seeing you really kind of investigate this piece of text. I have a lot of questions about this piece of text. I don't know that we're going to get to them all, but there's all kinds of things in my mind about this piece of text. Here's my first question that I'm wondering about. Who is delivering this speech? And what happened? What's going on inside this text? So we know it's a speech, but who is delivering the speech? And what happened that made this person want to give this speech?
I could have to war. He says, the chiefs, they're all dead.
Killed, dead. And then it said young and old men, and they're all in war together. I also think that he keeps repeating freezing to death, so maybe they were fighting in a cold area.
I think it's a dad, because he said he's looking for his children.
Okay.
And he's in some kind of war or something, because he says, I'm tired of fighting.
Agreeing or disagreeing? Yeah.
I kind of disagree. I think whoever's making this speech is a chief, and he's telling, as he said, our chiefs are killed, and hear me, my chiefs, I'm tired.
So Decca's saying, hear me, my chiefs. So he is also a chief?
Yeah, for right now.
A chief for right now. Okay, thanks. Yeah? You're good.
I think that it is also, I agree with Deck in the sense that it is also somebody with some power in the system, because he is saying our chiefs are dead. He's I will not fight anymore. And what would be in my opinion, what would be the significance of just a regular person saying that? I'm done, you know?
I want you to think about this. So we don't even know who these people are, these two people, but what is Chief Joseph doing? How is he making a decision based on these two people's lives? So you could turn again to your partners and talk about that.
It was a chief of from a different tribe. From a different tribe, and they were together fighting versus somebody else. Because you just wouldn't mention important people. That's what you do when you mention important people. That's pretty much it. I noticed that there's repetitive language. He who led the young men said, "It is cold and we have no blankets." That's the first time where he says no blankets right here. And then later on in the text he says no food. Have run away to the hills and have no blankets, no food. So no blankets, no food. Maybe he's in charge of supplies.
chiefs or not, but I do think that they're pretty important because he singles out those two names, and then he just goes to a broad spectrum. He just says the old men are all dead. So he kind of singled out those two names, so they're probably really important.
So the ancestors, the old men, the tribal elders are dead.
Yeah.
So there's really, again, this succession. Who takes over the intellect of the tribe, the leadership of the tribe? What concerns does Chief Joseph have about the health and welfare of his people? What is he thinking about the health and welfare of his people? And how do you know? What evidence do you have of his concern about health and welfare?
Troubling to see that about his children. So
that's what it says. It's the young men who say no and yes. So I think like all adults were involved in the war. Yeah. Because it says all the old men are dead.
Yeah, I agree with that because this statement right here, it is the young men who say no or yes. They are the successors.
That's why he's looking. He says looking for my children.
They're the successors of the chiefs. Like they're going to be the future of their people. So he cares more about the children than he does the actual adults. Yeah, because right here he says, I want to have time to look for my children and see how many of them I can find. But before that, he's like, perhaps they are freezing to death about the people. So the perhaps part is like a sign of, oh, you know, I don't really care about these people because the children are our future.
Oh, I see.
So, you know what I mean? Yeah, I see.
Hear me, my chiefs. I am tired. My heart is sad and sick.
We're going to look at some of the words and phrases that are in this speech. And what I'm wondering is, when he says, from where the sun stands now, what's that phrase mean? What does it signal to us? Why is it important?
I honestly think it references to the modern saying from this point. And from this point on, we're not going to do this. And so it's just like, from his point of view, it's just, he's trying to say that I'm not going to do this anymore.
Maybe the sun's setting, so it's the end of the day, or an end of an era, the Indian era, which is, you know, the white men are taking over their tribes.
Keelan?
When I think of the sun, I think of like light, and when I think of light, I think of hope, and I think the sun might be like down, so it's nighttime, so there's no hope, and so when he says, I will fight no more, like he lost hope.
At first I thought that it was him telling his people that he's kind of stepping down, but then when Ernesto read his last phrase, it sounds like he's asking, it's kind of like a prayer. Like he's telling the chiefs or his ancestors that he's tired and it's time for him to go.
What's the word, quickly, what's the word and why? What tone? Mike?
I think of actually two words, sorrow and relief. Because in the beginning of the story, they talk about everyone dying and then everything just going downhill. But in the end, things happen that's better for everyone else. And so it's kind of just good that it happened this way instead of possibly more people suffering.
Defeat and hopeless, because right here when he said, hear me, my chief, I'm tired, he looked like he's praying to the spirit saying, I don't know what to do, I see my people dying, I really don't know what to do, and just let the Americans push me around, just stop fighting, like, that's it, I don't know what to do.
What does that structure, the way it was written, convey about his mood? What is that telling you? Yusuf?
I think it's simple because like he's like trying to like show a point. So it's pretty much like literal like our chiefs are dead. I mean our chiefs are killed, so and so is dead, and like pretty much like straightforward and gets to the point. I'm not the best reader, but like especially if I read in my head, I realize I get lost easily and I don't understand, and that's when close reading actually comes in handy. Like reading it the first time, you don't really understand it. Like you're confused about what's going on, but the second or third time, you start like realizing things you didn't realize the first time, and that's what really helps me out. It's making me a better reader, I believe.
Emily, do you agree or disagree?
I agree with Yusuf, and I also I can see that the periods are quite consecutive. He doesn't have a one run-on sentence, so the effect is it's pretty straightforward and simple. So every reader can understand how he feels. Like simple.
I used to not like to read a lot because I never found books that I actually liked, or I would read a book and get get different kinds of books, and I would start reading 1 or 2 chapters and I wouldn't understand it. So it was hard to it's hard to read something when you don't understand what you're reading, because to your like mind it's just blah blah because nothing makes sense. But once I started using close reading and looking at the different symbols and metaphors, then I liked reading because I knew what I was looking at.
We're still talking about this speech decades later. What is it about that word forever?
I think it's like he could have just said like, I'm never gonna do it again, like I'm never gonna fight, but he used the word forever because forever is more like straightforward and actually saying I'm like forever, never, like not gonna fight. So I think forever, it's like used in a really good way here.
And forever, like, I mean, he could have, like, as you mentioned before, he could have said, I will fight no more, but I mean, he puts more emphasis in forever. Like, forever, that means, like, it's like, he's actually meaning it. He's just not saying, I will fight no more. He's like, I'll fight no more, but forever.
Like, that last line is very strong.
I think
just because of this word.
Yeah, it ties up everything together.
Here's what Chief Joseph said about that experience. A man who would not defend his father's grave is worse than a wild beast. So the question I have is, how does this second passage, the father's deathbed message and Chief Joseph's reaction, how does that second passage help you understand the speech that Chief Joseph gave to the troops?
I feel like it was too much for the father to ask of him, because he kind of knew that the white men were going to have way better guns, way better warfare. So it was like, I think he either expected his son to die right there and then in the battlefield trying to defend it, or he knew that at one point his son was going to end up giving up the land, because that's a lot to ask for, and knowing that the white men had far better guns, far better warfare, far more troops than that little tribe could probably handle.
I agree with Gil because, like, the white people took over the Indians. Like, they defeated them. Everybody ended up dead. So therefore, he had no choice. He's either die or walk off. And I'd rather walk off too.
Today's writing, we're going to look at the role of courage in surrender. Because a lot of people think surrendering is like giving up. We're going to look at the role that courage plays in surrender. So after reading and discussing the text we did today, we can use the father's message as well as his actual speech. We're going to write an essay that defines courage and explains the courageousness of that decision. Make sure you use evidence from those texts that we read today in your essays.
I feel like I read more now than I used to at any point in my life, because I used to have assignments on reading and I would just write on things I read before because I didn't know what to read. I never found anything interesting, and now after I've done a lot of close reading throughout my high school years, I feel like I read a lot.